Hello everyone, I'm day weather meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this August 5th, 2023. Welcome to the new month of August. It's being brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated, also being brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors. We're starting on a new month and we're also on the tail end of summer, believe it or not. What is August going to bring? Well, I think a little bit of a different flavor to the weather for some of you. Yes, we're still going to have some hot conditions, but we're also going to have parts of the U.S. that really won't be that hot, at least to start the month, and we'll show you where. First of all, we do see it drying out a bit. In the Four Corners area, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, parts of southwestern and western Colorado and New Mexico, the monsoon moisture has moved out for the time being. We do expect it to make a return before the season's over, but drier, warmer conditions and some heat returning. We did see some heat relief in the southwestern United States last week, but some of that heat is going to come back. Now, contrast that with cooler than average temperatures in many areas of the central northern Rockies and the central and northern plains. Temperatures are going to be well below average this weekend and into the beginnings of next week in those areas. Also, along and east of the Continental Divide, we're going to see a fairly active pattern of afternoon and evening shower and thunderstorm activity in that cooler air mass, and some of that will be reaching into the Midwest and Corn Belt. Now, over the last week, the monsoon moisture flow has been heavy. This axis in particular, right here, from the desert Southwest through the parts of the Great Basin, parts of the Rockies, and into the Corn Belt, there's been some very heavy rain. Some very heavy rains across portions of eastern Wyoming, western and central Nebraska, really all of Nebraska, parts of South Dakota. This weekend, there's going to be a heavy area of rain into this part of the country as well. So it's been pretty wet. In fact, rainfall has been very, very productive, as you can see in those brighter color areas. Now, underneath the area of high pressure, where the hot temperatures have been, that area of high there, you can see just the ring of moisture around that high. But what we're going to see this week is that high shift more to the west. So that will bring a drying trend. And in the past week, as you would surmise, where it's the hottest, it's the driest. Where it's the coolest, it's been the most wet. The cooler axis kind of going right through here and then back even into the west coast. The very hot conditions continuing here, centered on Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. The latest drought monitor does show increasing dryness. Now, nothing terribly bad here, but this area is drying out because the monsoon there just been very, very poor this season. And we continue to see some expanding areas of dry conditions here. Now, the Corn Belt areas are still dry, still some drought areas, but there's been improvement. A lot of the Rockies and the high plains here in the central areas doing well with the rain. The Pacific Northwest is another area, as well as northern and northwestern Montana, that's been seeing some dryness, as well as far areas of North Dakota and the Arrowhead of Minnesota. You can see in the last 4 weeks where that dryness has begun to show up. Right here, across Texas, parts of the northern plains up here, and as I just showed you. But do notice the gray and the green here, where there's been improvement in the drought conditions. Well-timed rain for the Corn Belt and the Midwest. And here's your latest soil moisture profile. The green areas have above average moisture, and you can see where the red and the brown areas are that have really become drier here over the last 4 weeks. Now, as we go into the weekend, we're going to see rain up in western British Columbia, then showers and thunderstorms from the areas east of the Cascades through the northern plains, central Rockies into the Midwest, while a hot, dry pattern this weekend develops into this part of the U.S. here. But the flow up into the central and northern areas of the U.S. is actually going to be from Canada. So the air mass is going to be cooler and a little more moist. And this continues into Wednesday. This is for Wednesday. The jet stream riding along fairly south here. So the northern half of the country, basically along and north of I-70, is going to be cooler with some showers and thunderstorms. The heat in the far southern areas of the U.S. from Florida to Arizona. Now, by next weekend, high pressure begins to migrate even further west and builds up into the west coast here in the Pacific Northwest. What this will do is direct the jet stream downward out of Canada into the central United States. So this is going to keep the nation's midsection, the Great Lakes, and the east a little bit cooler and wet. Well, it's going to get hot again in the desert Southwest, California, and through the Great Basin. And you can see that on our 7-day precipitation forecast. Drier conditions here under that axis of high pressure. Although notice we are starting to see some monsoon moisture starting to make a comeback. That'll probably be coming in next week, the week after this time. But along and east of the Continental Divide, you can see it's moist. You can see all the shower and thunderstorm activity, and that's going to coincide with those cooler temperatures as well. Have yourself a great week ahead. Our next update will be August 12th.